The tricolour fluttering high. It was first hoisted here in 1947 when British rule ended. 75 years later, Prime Minister Narendra Modi honoured freedom fighters and pledged to turn India into a developed nation.
In 25 years, India will celebrate 100 years of independence. Many of you will be 50 years old. Dedicate these years to helping your country reach its true potential.
The triumph of independence came with the horrors of partition. Riots broke out in both India and Pakistan, killing at least 1 million people. Decades later, many are trying to find common ground. Mahalakshmi Soda grew up in Sindh and now lives in Balrampur. Her family are among the many Hindus who stayed in Pakistan. She says she feels lucky to live in both countries.
My family stands out because, people feel that people were hostile towards us, and no, they weren't. And what our family's history was, I'm proud that my great-grandfather took that decision. And where it comes like I'm married, what is the difference? Actually, because I'm married in a Rajput, again, erstwhile family of Balrampur. So our culture and everything is very similar. So it was not a big change for me.
As part of the celebrations, the government is asking people to fly the tricolour. Celebrities have joined the campaign, and traders say the response has been unprecedented. The flag was one of the major symbols of the independence movement. The government says it wants people to build personal connections with the tricolour to invoke patriotism. Some analysts see this as a way to redefine nationhood and its violent past.
I ask myself, is it the case that the flag is also representing to us a kind of reliving of that very traumatic, violent time? Is it the case that we are actually remembering an antagonism that was extremely divisive, extremely violent, and the reason for partition?
Critics say religious tensions have increased under Narendra Modi. But on Independence Day, Indians from all walks of life turned out to celebrate. Pavni, Mittal, Al Jazeera, New Delhi.
Well, I'm pleased to say we have Shashi Tharoor, an MP from India's opposition Congress Party, joins us live now from New Delhi. Sir, welcome to the programme. India, of course, a very different country from that of 75 years ago. It's the world's 5th largest economy. Literacy rates have soared. Life expectancy is radically better, but there are still entrenched challenges. How do you look to the future now on this day?
Well, I think that the future can be very, very promising because you mentioned all the right things. We've gone from a literacy rate of 16% to 82%. We've gone from 90% of the population living below the poverty line in 1947 to about 20%. We've gone from a life expectancy of 27 to over 70. So all of this is good. And at the same time, because of the scale of the country and the nature of the challenges before us, we know it's not enough. There's a lot more that needs to be accomplished. And I think that's fundamental. But there are some things that the government is doing right. Even if I'm in the opposition, I will say that the emphasis that's been given on technology could actually be quite a game changer for India, for India's economy, and for India's role in the world. The government has just announced that the Indian wholly indigenous 5G technology is capable of taking on the world. And that's something we're looking forward to seeing. I think that the overall perception of the economy is relatively bullish. What worries people like me is the onset of a divisive social agenda on the part of the ruling party and its supporters, which needlessly is provoking a sense of division and therefore alienation amongst our minorities, and particularly the Muslim minority.
Yes, so the social challenges that you refer to are immense, aren't they? And not least the religious nature and makeup of the country. So how would you take that on?
Well, I can tell you how we did take it on. We've had very different governments up to 2014, and they went out of their way to instill an attitude of coexistence and harmony, of acceptance of difference. Some have described that in the ruling circles, have described that as appeasement. But, it certainly kept social peace and harmony. India would rightly, I think, boast with pride that with 180 million Muslims in this country, barely a handful of Muslims ever went into Taliban or Al-Qaeda or ISIS, Daesh, or any of those extremist organizations, because these were people who believed they had a stake in this society, and so no reason to do it harm. I think depriving people of a sense of that kind of affinity and belonging could be very dangerous. And I certainly hope the government either clamps down on the hotheads who are behaving badly or pulls them back if some of them have had government patronage. Because I think that the government doesn't need that to stay in power, judging by their continued habit of winning elections.
Right.
And at the same time, we in the opposition have this very important issue to keep beating them on the head with. They may as well give it up.
Like many nations around the world, the richest 10% control most of the wealth. And for the poor of India, that's a tough reality, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, there is no question that inequality is extremely great. It's probably been getting more unequal with the passage of time. But I will say, Nick, that if you were to look objectively, we've managed for some time, at least when we were in government, for 10 years, to ensure that while the rich got richer, the poor got a bit richer too. In fact, we averaged about 10 million people rising above the poverty line during each of our 10 years in governance. And that's no small feat. That's 100 million people who are no longer officially poor. I'm sorry to say that a lot of those people have slipped back below the poverty line in recent years, but also that perhaps the pace of change has been affected by factors like the COVID pandemic and the associated lockdown, the government's self-inflicted wound of demonetizing large chunks of our currency, and so on. So there have been some mismanagement as well. But at the end of the day, it can be done that, yes, you do have growth, and with growth you get richer people getting even richer still, but you can ensure that the poor benefit as well, and they also rise. Employment, for example, is going to be key. If you can actually ensure jobs for more people out of the growing economy, rather than jobless growth, then you have a situation in which you will be able to transform India for the better.
OK. Shashi Tharoor, appreciate your analysis and your perspective. That's Shashi Tharoor, MP from India's opposition Congress Party. Thank you.
Thank you very much.